back. We're live. All right, we talked about latent heat of vaporization. Now let's talk about vapor pressure. Vapor pressure is the amount of pressure given off by a certain amount of by fuel, and it can be measured if you put it in a sealed container. So vapor pressure is the pressure given off by a sealed amount of gas in a bomb. Well, it's not the kind of bomb that you're thinking of. It's this kind of bomb. So you take and you put fuel down in this sample container, and then it's heated up, and vapors come up in here, and then you see how much pressure you got from the vapors.
How's it heated up in there?
Torch.
Torch.
I don't know. The higher the pressure, the higher the pressure, the more likely the fuel is to vapor lock. Has anybody made a homemade one of these things? Well, I'm just thinking about, how about all these brand new stinking approved fuel containers that don't have any vents in them? You guys have any of those? Yeah. And so you go to the gas station, you put 5 gallons of gas in there, and then it makes into like a ball because there's no vents on it. Well, there you go. You just made yourself a little pressure bomb, vapor pressure bomb. All you gotta do is measure it, and you'll be fine. All right, I gotta move this over. You got a problem with that? Well, you came in late, man. Hey, making the rest of us. All right. All right, so let's see. Well, if I write any more here, then you'll hate me. As far as the vapor pressure of fuel goes, it should be what? What's the right combination? Volatile enough to
vaporize into the carburetor.
Carburetor when? What's worst case scenario?
When it's running.
Check the magnitude.
Starting. So it should vaporize enough to start a cold engine, but not so much that it vapor locks, evaporates. Very good. Okay. So I'll write those. Let's see. I don't have a number here. Volatile enough to start a cold engine, but not so volatile as to boil off in the tank or cause vapor lock. Although if you misdesign or do an inappropriate design on the fuel system of the aircraft, it'll still vapor lock. But it shouldn't vapor lock within the system that's been properly designed. All right, so that's fuel volatility. Let's talk about octane rating. what exactly is octane rating? Wait a minute. I have been preparing for this. Sorry for the delay.
Did you start recording again?
Yes. Okay, let's try this again. What exactly is octane rating? How do you stop it?
The resistance.
Nice. Shh. Yeah, that wasn't the best idea. All right. All right, so what was that? Dennis that said that?
Yeah.
Okay, pretty good. That's exactly it. It's the resistance to detonation. The EX and X. An expression of the fuel's anti-detonation characteristics. So in other words, we talked a lot last class about how detonation is really bad. It's more of an explosion of the fuel. It's going to cause rapid damage. It's going to cause, at a minimum, erosion of the pistons, which is then going to put aluminum in the system, create hot spots, burn valves. Within a matter of seconds, it can actually burn through a piston and completely destroy an engine. So it's really a bad, bad thing. In a car, we can hear it. And there are NOx sensors in the car that will adjust the timing. It'll back off the timing. It'll do something, adjust the fuel. It will protect itself. In an aircraft, because of the propeller noise, you can't hear it. And when it happens, you have no idea. Your first indication may be the fact that the engine is no longer running. And that's a bad thing. So it's a pretty big deal. And there's a lot of fear behind allowing a aircraft engine to detonate, which I think is why we have problems with proper leaning, but we'll get into that. So it's simply just an expression of the fuel's anti-detonation characteristics. So when you go to the gas station and you have, unless you go into Costco, you have two choices, but under most circumstances you have three choices of fuel. You have, what's the low is, what, 87, 89, and then 91, right? Okay, so, and then of course you hear people all the time who are like, love my car. So even though it says it needs, only the low stuff, 87, I baby it. And I always put the good gas in it. Is there a difference in quality between the gases?
No.
Absolutely not. Is there a difference between the power potential of each one?
No.
It's the same. So one is more prone to detonation, one is not. And so we already talked about the fact that if you have a higher compression engine, you're using the 91. If you have a lower compression engine, you're using the 87. And I don't know what goes in the middle. No, even Costco's like, we're not selling that. So, all right. So it's an expression of that. Maybe I'm getting a little bit too much into this, but it's kind of fun in a way. So the way they do this, I'm going to abbreviate this. You don't have to write a bunch of stuff. Is the engineers, they take they have an engine and it's got two completely different fuel systems on it, system A and system B. And so they want to test a fuel and they say, okay, so we're going to put this fuel in system A, we're going to run it. We're going to check the detonation qualities of this fuel. And they'll take a certain manifold pressure, certain RPM, certain, whatever they want to do, timing. Say, okay, it pings right there, right? And I'm probably way oversimplifying this. And they say, okay, that's what it takes to ping. Now they're going to switch it over to system B, which has got two different types of fuels, isooctane and what's the other one here? Normal heptane. So you have two different ones. So isooctane is like 100. I could write that. So just you can follow me along. So isooctane So that's like pure isooctane is like 100. So instead of your 91, you used to have 100. And then we have normal heptane has a rating of, I think, 10. 10. Ooh, I think my notes are wrong. I have 0. I think it's 10 though, not 0. I think it's 10. 0 wouldn't make sense. All right, and so so then what they'll do is they'll blend this isooctane and normal heptanes, and they'll bring in more of the normal heptane and more and more and more until it starts to knock, just like the reference fuel did. So, okay, so it was a mixture of 80% isooctane and 20% normal heptane. Well, maybe it is 0. 10 or 0. My notes say 0. So if it was 20%, this would make more sense now that I'm explaining it. 20% isooctane, 20% normal heptane, then you would say, well, since it was the 80% isooctane, it's an 80 octane. Got it? Okay. In aircraft fuel, though, we have a problem in that we go beyond 100. And so what you do is there at that point is you would take your aviation reference grade fuel and you would say, okay, and check the NOx qualities. And you would say, all right, well, now we want to see what, and it's not called an octane rating at that point. It's called, what's the number that just threw out of my head? Performance numbers, the numbers in the wording in my head. If I'm wrong, I'll get that. But so let's just say our reference aviation fuel's beyond 100. Well, so they shut down, they switch over to the isooctane. They're saying, okay, well, we got it to 100. It's still not, now it's detonating on this fuel, but it didn't over here. So what are we going to do? Then they add lead to it. They start adding lead to the isooctane, now they can bring it up and go, okay, so it's equal to isooctane plus X number of milliliters of lead, and then you get this performance number for a fuel. So aviation fuel is a little bit different. And then I go on to some great lengths of stuff I probably shouldn't have. How they do this, and they do it different ways. I just described one. They have the research octane. Oops, why did I do all that? They have the research octane number, which is the most common type of octane rating worldwide, is the research octane number, RON. Determine running the fuel test engine with a variable compression ratio under controlled conditions, comparing results with these mixtures to isooctane and normal heptane. Told you that. Hey, look at that, even have the same thing. It's 80% isooctane to 20% normal heptane. The fuel will be then a rating of 80. Then there's another way they could do it, which is the MON way, which is motor octane number, another type of rating. And it's very specific, and they just changed the way the engine goes. It's determined a 900 RPM engine speed instead of the 600 for the RON. MON testing uses a similar test engine to that of the RON testing, but with preheated fuel mixture, higher engine speed, variable ignition timing to further stress the fuel's knock resistance. Depending on the composition of the fuel, the MON of a modern pump gasoline about 8 to 12 octane lower than the RON. So the MON is a little bit lower than the RON. Why do I tell you all this?
Kevin, at the gas pump, it says it contains 10% ethanol or...
Oh,
It says R plus M, that.
what does it say right there?
R plus M.
R plus M divided by 2 method. So I tell you all that to tell you, what does that mean?
Ron and Mon. It's midway between the Ron and Mon.
It's the average of the RON and the MON method. So now every time you fill up gas, you'll be like, hey, I know what that means. And also, what the heck is 85? This was not California.
Wyoming.
Wow.
I don't know. But anyway, that's what the R plus M divided by 2. So next time you're out with somebody and you'll be like, hey, I know what that means. And they'll be like, hey, nobody cares. Oh. All right.
Okay, boring.
I know. And you tell them a dad joke and it's all good. Okay. So we'll go back to here. So I skipped a whole bunch, which is probably a good thing. So aviation.
What have we graded to?
Yeah, have that.
Oh, I didn't. Okay. I was just making up a number there. So this would be 4, so there we go. IV. IV, thank you. It's actually 5 on mine, but yeah, that's why I left out some stuff. So Aviation uses a method close to the Thermon method. A rating of 100. So if we have 100 low lead is the fuel that we have. So a rating of 100 means the fuel is equivalent. Equal to what? What would it be equal to then if it has a rating of 100? Where's my
Pure octane.
isooctane? Because isooctane was 100, so pure isooctane. Now, why don't they just use pure isooctane? I don't know. They're getting kind of... I mentioned to you guys that when I went to the Lycoming school, one of the guys in the class was a fuel engineer, and it was very interesting to talk to him. He was there because they have a Lycoming engine where they test the fuel in. All of the things that go into fuel that I had never even thought of. They were working on, he was working at that time on an unleaded version. And he said it's not just a matter of making an unleaded fuel. Basically, that would be rather easy, comparatively speaking. They need to make an unleaded fuel that is compatible and usable with a mixture of every other fuel known to man, because you never know what somebody put in their aircraft, and it has to be able to mix with the fuel that they're putting in there and still have the same octane rating. But we don't call it an octane rating. Avgas is what we call it. Avgas, aviation gasoline, can exceed 100. I'll say octane, and is therefore called a performance number. Although you can call it octane, I don't think anybody's going to matter. You wouldn't want to say, hey, I need some 100 low lead, but I want the performance number, not the octane, right? Nobody knows. You're a fuel truck guy, right?
Yeah.
Just 100 low lead.
100 low lead all day long. Less it's turbine.
Huh?
Less it's turbine.
Unless it's turbine. Then you probably ought not to mix the two.
Yeah.
Can you run 100 low lead in a turbine?
Yes, you could.
You can,
Theoretically.
but very little.
Yes, you
Can you run Jet A in a piston engine?
Hell no.
No, I told you guys that there are a bunch of ADs out there that call that aircraft by N number in this area that Chevron accidentally leaked or potentially leaked some Jet A into the 100 low lead supply at an air show. And so everybody who'd flown in, it was like a fly-in thing too. So everybody got this gas truck full. Chevron bought new engines for everybody.
Wow.
You get a new engine. You get a new engine.
Air shell for shell.
So for those pilot owner operators who wish to use car gas, it was maybe about a year ago or so, I saw something in the newspaper where a whole bunch of cars, I think in the Auburn area or something like that, Grass Valley, somewhere around here, they did that. They got cross-contaminated the fuel, and all these people lost their engine, and they were mad. It was one station. They went to the station, and basically, it was like, guy was like, prove it. I'll buy you a new engine. And so if you would have filled up your 5-gallon gas cans and filled up your airplane with that stuff, you would be buying a new engine. So I don't know. For me, it's just not worth the risk of putting aviation or car gas in my aircraft.
The gas stations that sell 100 octane racing fuel,
Uh-huh.
it's like $10 a gallon or something like that.
Jeez. All right. As we just kind of talked about, when it comes to aviation gasoline, you pretty much only have one flavor now, and that's just 100 low lead. All right, but
Tastes great.
it tastes great, less filling. I think that was an old commercial that's not around anymore. But you used to have all different kinds, and it's funny. Even your textbooks talk about like it's still there. I don't know if you can get it anymore.
Red and green.
But yeah, you had all different colors. So we had red, which is called 8087. And notice that it's two numbers. And it's not like, well, you know, some days it was 80 and some days it was 87. Well, that's not quite the case. So the numbers indicate the performance numbers, which is the anti-knock characteristics, right? And that is 80 is a lean mixture, which means that we'll talk about lean and rich, but you're running more air, or you're always running more air than fuel, but you're not in the middle. We're a chemically pure, perfect burn where there's just enough oxygen to burn just enough of the gas that you've mixed in a scientific way. Is called stoichiometric, and I'll write this down and go back over it. But it's called stoichiometric. So that's the perfect mix. Now, if we leave stoichiometric and we start going with less gas, so there's more oxygen now, and so it doesn't chemically burn pure, and that's called lean. And then if we go the other way and put more fuel, then we have air to burn, then that would be called rich. And I said we'll talk a lot more about that. So 80 is the lean mixture, and 87 is the rich. Which this is an important point because it kind of shows you that on the rich side of things, your anti-knock qualities go up. On the lean side, your anti-knock qualities go down. So you got to think about that. Oh yeah, we're going with this. So it had about 0.5 milliliters. I'll write that out. 0.5 milliliters of lead per gallon. All right, so when I first started flying, you had two choices. You had your red 8087 or you had your blue 100 low lead. And there were some others out there, but the airports just didn't carry it. For a while, there was purple. Oh, dang it. Which was 115, 145. So you know what the 115 means, right? What is that? Lean. 145 is rich. So that was the military. Military used that. Military and race planes. Because they're putting a lot of supercharging, getting their manifold pressures really high. It was pretty rare to find. Only a few aircraft are ever certified on this one. At 4.6 milliliters of lead per gallon. So look at that. So we had 0.5 all the way up to 4.6. So like I said, it's kind of like the isooctane, and then they just start throwing all this lead in. And the lead brings the anti-knock qualities in. Yeah.
Lead purely an anti-knock additive?
Uh-huh. As far as I know, that's the only reason why they're using it. What do you think?
No, I was wondering.
Oh, as far as I know, that's the whole purpose of it. Yes.
So you said there's not a lot of planes that are rated for that type of fuel?
There were very few that were
What would,
type certificated for that.
what would stop a pilot from wanting that fuel, even if his plane wasn't rated for that?
Right, so I have my Cessna 150,
Yeah.
and I'm like, hey man, I want some race fuel. I want the good purple stuff with all that lead. We're going to talk about lead. Lead is a problem. Lead is not a good thing for anybody. If it's bad for the environment, not that I care. Just kidding. So it's bad for the airplane. Now I care, right? So lead is now I care. Lead creates nothing but problems. And so I wish there was an unleaded formula and we'll talk about all the problems that it creates, and then we'll talk about some of the problems that we create pilots create. We're mechanics, we tell them not to. Then we had green. I never seen the purple, I never seen the green. That was green 100, which was 100/130, and you know now what the 100 and 130 means.
Green's in Europe.
We had, what was it? Yesterday was St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah.
My son, you guys met little Jay. He just kept calling it Green Day. Today's Green Day. Okay, so I couldn't find good data. No lead limit. But usually 3 milliliters per gallon. Lycoming stated, and there's twice as much lead as 100 low lead. All right, now we've got the blue. And if you have never seen a bucket or a jar of blue 100 low lead, it is the prettiest blue liquid you will ever see.
I can see if I can bring some in.
Okay, yeah. We wish a pool looked like that. You want to dive right in, but don't. Okay, so blue 100 low lead. Low lead is a relative term. So still, and I thought this was interesting when I actually found this, still 100, 130. We simply just call it 100 low lead, but we could have actually called it 100, 130. So again, we're going back to the anti-knock qualities on a lean setting are not equivalent to a rich setting. The richer it is, the more anti-knock you're going to get. And that becomes one of the problems where people are afraid to lean too much. Like, oh, I don't want to do that. I read another publication that it's more like 104, 130. I don't know, I just thought that was interesting. Here we go. That's a decent representation. And back when I was a DME, this was one of the test questions. And I had, thanks for Katie, I mean, this is a long time ago, baby food jars, probably Katie's. And I filled them up full of all different fluids. So I had three, I didn't use these three, I'd use red, blue, and something that was kind of a straw colored or sort of dirty water color. What would that be?
Don't put it in the tank.
Jet fuel.
It's jet fuel.
Yeah.
Jet A. So
It'll be
you had to
dirty.
pick it out. You had to pick out the 100 low lead, you had to pick out the 80, 87, you had to pick out the jet fuel. Yeah.
Is jet A, is that added at where it's manufactured? Because we get it in bulk, and I've never seen, it just looks clear.
Yeah, it's a little off clear. Yeah.
Depends on the bucket.
It depends on the bucket, yeah. I think the is a straw color, but yeah, I've always seen it's really more clear. I think my jars, what I eventually did because they kept leaking, and I hated that, and fuel destroys especially the jet fuel, it stunk so bad. I just put some water in a jar. So yeah, just put water in a jar, and then I just put a couple drops of food coloring in the other ones, and I'm like, yeah, nobody could tell the difference. Nobody ever once said, oh, it looks funny. I'm like, yeah.
And this is dye that's added into the fuel?
Yes. Okay, nowadays, Brett, what? Because I bet you know the answer to this one. If I dip tanks and I pull out red, if you have red fuel nowadays, what does that mean?
Being an off-road diesel and it is not taxed in the state of California, you will have a hell of a fine on your hands.
Why did I think you would know that one? I don't know. That is right. So red stained fuel, red dyed fuel now is non-taxed diesel.
Off-road diesel.
Do they ever check?
Yeah, it's like
Oh
the first
boy,
thing
yes
they'll
they
do.
check.
If you see a highway patrol van or truck, you have that, you should probably go the other way. Because it stains your tank for like months.
Okay, 2. Okay, LL, that's low lead. Is a relative term. I don't know if that was a political move or what. So 100 because I mean it sounds good. Not her. Has 2.12 milliliters of lead per gallon. And when I was a kid, when you pulled up to the pump, it would ask you, because back then they'd do it for you, not when I was driving, I was just a little kid standing on the seat, you want regular or unleaded. We had both. So we had leaded car gas. And back then, leaded car gas had 2.2 grams per gallon. Should have did the same thing. So leaded, so 100 low lead, it still has a lot of lead. It's just lower than the other stuff they used to have.
Isn't that pretty high though? I mean, that's really low for cars.
Well, now cars is unleaded.
Well, because it's 2.2 grams, that's a lot less than milliliter.
I know. That's why I said I should have done the same thing. So it met. So 2.2 milliliters is.
Well, it depends what the density is.
I know.
Yeah, what is, how much?
I'll get that. I'll convert it one of these days. Okay, but now we've got, and I haven't seen it yet. 82 UL
What?
unleaded. This came out of a book that I found. Purple. But notice the octane. We're down to 82. So that's pretty low. Low. This is low octane grade. Suitable for low compression engines. So if you look at the STC for aircraft for all piston engines, with the exception of the race planes and such, it's either going to say that minimum grade is 80, 87 or 100.
Is that more gas?
On the STC?
No, is that?
Oh, the 82 UL?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
No, this is the new stuff that I don't know. I haven't seen it. I don't know who sells it. I just have a book that talks about it and thought, well, let's bring it out and talk about it. Let me think. Make this quick. Higher vapor pressure can be manufactured from motor gasoline components. So I believe it is we'll just say it's derivative of motor gas. And my sources say it's suitable for aircraft with an autogas STC. What's an autogas STC?
STC to use on gasoline.
That's it. So you pay, I don't know what it is, 100 and some odd bucks, 200, I don't know, I never bought one, to a guy who figured this out and got the STC, and comes with a piece of paper and an Adele clamp with stamped on it that says STC, SE, such and such, or SA, whatever, and you just have the paperwork and it says you can put autogas. I have one on my aircraft. It came with it. I have never put autogas in mine. How much does avgas weigh?
6.2 gallons. Pounds
You almost have to commit that to memory. Especially when you're working weight and balance issues. So it's going to come into play when they talk about gallons and weights, and you just got to be able to convert it real quick. All right, I promised you I would talk about this. So here we go. Lead in fuel. I want to make this not so complicated. Let's see how well I do. But it's important to get this concept. So, tetraethyl lead, or TEL, is an octane booster. All right. TEL, when burned, forms lead oxide. say LO, lead oxide. Oops, solid. SOL, solid. So lead oxide remains solid up to 900 degrees. Well, that doesn't sound like a problem because you think inside the combustion chamber it's over 900 degrees. But the problem is spark plugs don't really get that hot at idle. So here you are idling and your spark plug is below 900 degrees. So what's going to happen to this tetraethyl lead inside your fuel? It's going to form lead oxide. And the lead oxide is going to build up around your spark plugs. And it's going to form all these nasty little balls. We call them clinkers. All these balls, and it's going to short out your spark plugs. So that's a real big problem, especially in the Cessna 152s with the Lycoming 0235s. Huge problem. Probably one of the worst engines for this problem. But it happens to everybody. So let's say this causes spark plug fouling. And corrosion. So the lead oxide gets very corrosive. And so now we get corrosion happening on the cylinder walls, the camshaft, and all kinds of stuff because this stuff's running around there. So we got to get rid of it. So to remove the lead oxide, you just use ethylene dibromide. We'll call that ethylene dibromide, so I don't have to keep writing it.
Say that second word.
Ethylene dibromide, D-I-B-R-O-M-I-D. Spell it right. Dibromide. So this ethylene dibromide changes the lead oxide to, told you it was kind of complicated, lead bromide. Which is not corrosive and it's not prone to fouling spark plugs. But for the lead bromide, the ethylene dibromide to work, cylinder temps must be high. So we're right back to almost the same problem where we need high temps. But at least we've gotten rid of this corrosiveness. So need the high temps. So left untreated, you need high temps. How should we say this again?
It should be for LB, LB.
See, for ethylene dibromide, changes to lead bromide. No, it changes it to lead bromide.
Okay.
But for the ethylene dibromide to work, to change it to lead bromide, you need the cylinder temps to be high.
Why doesn't it short out the spark plug? It's a salt.
What's that?
Ethylene dibromide, lead bromide is a salt.
But it actually covers it all up. It actually encapsulates the whole thing.
Okay.
Can't even see it anymore. It gets so bad that you're like, what is this stuff?
But it
And
can
that's,
build up, right?
what's that?
But it can build up still.
Oh yeah, it totally builds up.
That was sludge?
What's that?
Is that with sludge? Sludge?
No, it's not sludge. Not at all. Well, sludge is something else that's happening in the engine, but yeah, that comes from the byproduct of combustion and all that. So when you guys get out to second year and you're working, or you see them working on their spark plugs, you can hear the vibrator running, and it's these little prongs that go inside of the spark plug, and it actually vibrates. You have to vibrate all these little balls out, and you can just get a whole handful of them out of a spark plug, all these little balls in there. So I think I need to add this one because I think it might even be a QA question. I'm not even sure. So, well, let me just add one more thing before I add that. So we'll put this. We'll put long periods Long periods of idle cause this ethylene dibromide to fail and allow the plugs to foul. Why idle? Because we're back to low temps. The spark plugs aren't getting the temp they want. There's a Lycoming service instruction that actually talks about, I think it's even specific mostly to the 0235. And what they ask you to do is, so especially in an airport like this where it's so long, I mean, if you're landing down at the numbers and you're parking over here, well, you got to go, what, 2 miles? So you're idling all the way down. So you should aggressively lean. And we'll talk about the controversy in that. So aggressively lean, get it back, and then you've idled, everything is cooled off, but before you park, you need to bring the RPM up and run it at about 1700 RPM for, gives a time frame, it's like a minute or so, and then quickly shut down because you want to get the spark plug temps way up, burn off this stuff, then shut down quickly. So that's what you got to do there. This is the one I was going to say. It might be a Q&A. I think they talk about TCP. I could be wrong on that. Approved additive. To help reduce lead bromide. All right, I'm going to throw this out if anybody has anything. So lead is said to cause valve problems. So when we were making the switch from 8087 to 100 octane, there was all this, oh, you got to get the 100 octane valves. This is a 100 octane valve. It's designed for the 100 octane. And it was like, well, why? And nobody could really say, well, this is why. I cannot find any really good data that says this is exactly what happens. You just read stuff that says, oh, the use of lead causes necking in valves. It causes the necks to erode. Why? You know, it didn't say it causes stem wear or valve guide wear. It causes them to neck, which is the area between the head and the stem, to kind of neck. And so I did a bunch of research on it, and best I could come up with was that it caused some additional pounding, the lead, but that didn't make sense because I found another article that said the lead actually provided this cushion so the valve closed easier, and it's like, wow, okay, so nobody agrees on anything, so I'll just say lead is said to cause valve problems and leave it at that. I cannot find a single person who actually says that's why. So
lead deposits might be a bit of a myth.
It's not deposits on the valve at all. That's a whole nother issue. No. So all right. So why is lead bad? Well, because it causes spark plug fouling. You get corrosive stuff going on in the engine. So it's not a good thing at all. So for all of us that had 8087 engines, when we can no longer have 8087, nobody was happy about that. Nobody wanted to go to the 100 low lead because it had more lead in it, even though it's low lead. But if you didn't understand that, you'd be like, wait a minute, 8087 going to low leaded gas, that makes perfect sense. Well, it wasn't because the lead was different. All right, let's see. D, auto gas, there's avgas versus auto gas. All right, like I said, mini aircraft use an STC to run auto gas. Sometimes they call it MoGas. It's only possible on an engine that was certified on 8087. You can't do it if it's a high octane engine and it called for 100 low lead or 100 octane because well, there just isn't any 100 octane car gas that's going to match the STC. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? What could be the benefits of using? Okay. Spoken like a true aircraft owner. Oh gosh, they're so clean. It's crazy clean how clean Chevron and shell gas is. Benefits, really, there's no lead. So if you have no lead, you have no lead problems, which we just talked about. No lead problems with valves. I'll put with valves. If there is one. Spark plugs. Spark plugs. And very clean intake ports. And boy, are they clean. As long as you're using the right stuff. Use an Arco, good luck to you. And because of Hannah, cheaper. There you go. And let's finish this off with the cons. Woo, I got way too many cons for that. All right, so we will pick up with the cons tomorrow.
Kevin, can I see that last part?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, let me go back.